All right, ladies, here we are. We've been waiting so long for this moment. I am so glad that you are tuning in to our Facebook Live for our Sisters. How y'all feel? This is always a good town hall that we put on every year during Black History Month, only because we want to make sure we're doing what we need to do um, as sisters spotlighting African American women, whether that be in the workplace, whether that be in business or anything like that. So I am joined by three amazing women who have just been doing it in their respective careers. And tonight we're going to talk about just a plethora of topics so that we can bring you some value, so that you are able to, take a look at your own life, take a look at some of the things that are happening in society and, have your own opinion about things. So I told them that now I got to do this, y'all. I got to put my glasses on so I can definitely
It is okay.
introduce the ladies who are here. So bear with me. So first up, we have Miss Latoya Shante Snell, noted as the Root 100 as one of the most influential African American women between the ages of 25 and 45. Latoya is a sponsored endurance athlete, a body politics activist, a motivational speaker, and a food and fitness blogger of Running Fat Chef. She has been on many platforms talking about fitness and stereotypes. And tonight she's going to give us some of her amazing, groovy ideas on what it means to be a woman, an African American woman in this space. So, Latoya, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for affording me the opportunity to be on this platform.
All right. Next up, we have Miss Andrea Harry Bibbs. She spent over 20 years immersed in media and entertainment industry. She is currently the founder and CEO of two businesses. I don't know how you do that. The Andrea C. Bibbs Group and June Dragonfly. And the ABC Group is a boutique media and marketing consulting firm helping businesses and entrepreneurs succeed through press exposure, strategic partnerships, and more. And in 2023, Bibbs announced the creation of the Andrea C. Bibbs Group Award and Athletic Financial Scholarship to support Black student athletes at her alma mater, Toronto Metropolitan University. Did I say that right?
That's right. That's right.
All right, I told y'all I can't see. Okay, so and last but not least, we have my home girl, Melody Gross. Now, Melody and I went to high school together.
We
So I
did.
already know that she's a firecracker in her own right. But she is a motivational speaker. She's a facilitator. She's a certified professional life coach who values freedom, connection, and voices for those who are silent, which is so true. As a resilient survivor of domestic violence, Melody brings an energetic and emphatic approach to her calling. She is the founder and chief of Domestic Violence Disruptor of Courageous Shift. Melody, thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here as well. I appreciate all of you for actually doing this. So, this is how I want to be able to do this, ladies, if we can. Like I told you before we started, I want to, just talk about some different topics. The first topic that I want to start with, of course, is mental health.
Mm-hmm.
When we were young growing up
Yeah.
as young Black women, we were taught we had to be twice as good. We were also taught that we could go ahead and have a baby and hurry up and get back to work because we got to go do it. We got to be strong
Right.
and we got to be courageous in any situation. We can't show our feelings. We got to have this resilience.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that helped or hurt us in the long run?
If I'm not sure which order, if how we're
Go
going to.
for it. Go for
Yeah.
it.
I believe that it did a blend of both, at least in my opinion. You know, society is not kind to Black women. At all. We are expected to be perfect and we're expected to be humble. And I mean that in the worst of sense of we cannot make mistakes, but then we have to have this humility in us where we have to be strong, but then we have to be soft. There is no such thing. There's no balance to it. There's the when we try to strive for that perfection, we will always fail. And I feel like there was good intentions, from whether we're speaking about our ancestors or we're talking about people who are here who just happen to be in a different generation. I think that their intentions were well, but I think it's a survivor's mindset to make sure that we have it better than they had it. But it is setting us up for failure. When you don't have room for vulnerability, you don't have room to say, these are my feelings and I need to sit in it for a minute. It is expecting us to do this. I think my dad used to say, kill or be killed. I used to hate that analogy. Um, it's this ridiculous self-belief that we have to do it all on our own. And when
Yeah,
we look at other communities, I'm a person that I like to be deliberate instead of saying people of color. When
Right.
we look at other communities that are not Black, there is a strong it's almost ingrained that we're supposed to lean in, to take breaks, to not have to rush back to work. That is okay for us to lean into a matriarch or the father in the family to say that this baby is not just yours, it's ours. This is our baby, we're going to take care of it. And then when it comes to us as Black people, we are damned if we decide to date outside of our community, let alone get married outside of our community. We are damned if we are married to someone in our community and then we expect them to fulfill certain roles. It's like we're asking for too much. Well, aren't you okay that your spouse is going to work, when he could not be here? And these are stereotypes that are perpetuated out there that is not necessarily true. And then when it comes to us, we're not allowed, and I won't say allowed, we are conditioned to not speak up for ourselves. The moment that we speak up for ourselves, we don't call it passion, we call it emotional. How dare this person become erratic, emotional, advocate for themselves? Instead, you're supposed to be quiet.
what
You're
I
Yeah.
would
supposed
say,
to,
Latoya, is like your mom. I know my grandmother and most of you guys, and Melody, you could take this. You can't show no vulnerability because you don't have time,
mm-hmm,
right?
Right.
You got to
Listen.
sit up here and you got to make this thing work.
Yeah.
Your emotions, you got to hold that
right,
because right now, I got to be you got to be able to help me take care of this household. You got to be able to
right,
help me do what it is that I need to do. So it's like it's been that way for so long.
Yeah.
Even we, up to a certain point, use that in order
Yes.
to push ourselves to even get to where we are right now. You know
Absolutely.
what I'm saying? What do you think about that, Melody?
Yeah, so absolutely to everything that you both said. The interesting thing about it is like when I think of like mental health and in particular with Black women, it's this idea that we are supposed to hold that within ourselves and only ourselves, and we're not supposed to ask for help, right?
Right.
We constantly hear, keep it in the home, keep it in the home. Well, that keeping it in a home is keeping people unsafe. It's keeping Black women unsafe, right? Like I have a grandmother who raised me, and I know in my heart of hearts, like she dealt with mental health issues, with depression, anxiety, things like that. But either, part of it was she didn't know how to articulate that, or that like there was this shame and stigma around it. So she never got to ask for help. She never got to break. The only time I felt like my grandmother actually had to rest was when my grandfather died, right? It's
Mm,
like, okay, right? Okay, I can breathe a little bit. You know what I mean? And that's unfortunate. And I know it's bad because if we don't deal with our mental health, it's going to show up in our bodies, right? And when I
right.
think about the women in my family, for generations on my paternal side, every single one of the women died from heart disease.
Yeah.
Every single one of them, right? And I just had this conversation with a friend. I was like, well, I'll be damned. Like, I'm going to say what I got to say, right? I'm going to rest. We have this idea, and we recognize we live in a capitalistic society. We live in a society that's built on white supremacy that tells us you need to work, 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 work. You do not rest, right? And I push back and say my ancestors has worked for enough for generations to come. I am going to rest, right? I am going to relax. I am going to say no. I think the pendulum has swung so much where, like, we were into your point, Latasha, survival mode, right? So we did all of this stuff for survival mode. So we pushed back anything we may have been dealing with mentally. And then we have this pendulum that's like soft girl era and rest and da. And I was like, okay, but that's a little extreme for me. Like, that's a little extreme because I feel like it can be a yes and, right? Like, I love to work. I love to do what I got to do. But we live in such a binary world, right? That, like, you either going to take care of your mental health or you're going to do nothing. Like, what is, like, no, right? You can do both, right? You can
And it's
rest
like,
and do both.
I said this to a friend the other day too, because, our lives are very different from, our parents, grandparents, and
Right.
everything. And when we look at how we got to this point, and this is for you, Andrea, did it serve us or did it help us? Did it serve us to have our women in our family say, hey, because it could be as small as when your grandfather or your father go to the store, they always picking up the wrong thing. They'll turn around and say, no, you're supposed to do that. You supposed to go to the store and get this thing, or you supposed to go do this because they don't know, right? They can't do. You supposed to do. If if did it serve you up to a certain point and now it doesn't work anymore? Or are we in this cycle where they're saying, most of the older people, that now we're soft. We're too soft. We don't have no grit.
Mm. I honestly don't think it's possible for us to not have grit. I don't think it
Mhm.
is. I mean, and what LaToya was saying around just, us not really taking that time sometimes, just pushing and not having that second, right? And then it affecting our mental health later. It's hard. It's hard. I mean, I talk to so many of my girlfriends every evening about how we need to take care of our mental health, how we need to rest, right? But it's for me, I spent 20 plus years in corporate, and that perfection, LaToya, that you were talking about, it's ingrained, right? I had amazing parents. I grew up in Canada. I'm first generation Canadian and had immigrant parents who worked hard. They never necessarily told me you have to be a doctor. I didn't have those type of immigrant parents that were like, they would have loved it for me to be a doctor, lawyer, but they wanted me to be happy, right? But I knew I wanted to make them proud. But I see how trying to be perfect in school, trying to be perfect in my jobs, by not speaking up a lot, or by just trying to play it safe, it affected me later on. I'm now 47, and I left my corporate job. I took a buyout about a year and a half ago, and I am still unlearning a lot of these past few years in terms of doing the things we should have been taught, or maybe I should have just done years ago, like taking risk, right? Taking that risk to be an entrepreneur, or taking any sort of small risk by trying something new, and what that can do for us. And for me, it's doing these things for my children, for them to see their mom in a different light, for me to talk about I am tired, or for me to really be open about my mental health and what they need to be doing now, right? That it's okay for me, it's okay for me and my husband, in terms of them wanting to try things outside the box, that it's okay for them as Black children to not necessarily go exactly the same route that we did, but that we support them, because I think that's important. So I don't know if that necessarily answered the question, but I think there's some things that we take from our parents from looking at, how we were raised. And again, we can't help but have those ingrained in us, but it's also part, for us, to help the next generation and also to help our mental health and not, kind of repeat some of these cycles that are going to make us exhausted and unhappy, to be
And that's
honest.
my next question. How do we do that knowing now that, mental health is like a big buzzword right now? Some people walking around with anxiety and depression and everything. I see it on people all the time, and I'm saying to myself, if they would just take a break, if they would do this, like, how do we introduce that without it being frowned upon or looked at as embarrassing, especially for a Black woman? Because for us, it holds so much weight in everything that we do if we do have that vulnerable moment. So how do we start to introduce this in a healthy way where we can get them to listen and get them to say it's okay?
Sometimes I think the breakdown just has to happen.
Mhm. I
For
agree with that.
me, I am that person.
Me too.
I literally just had an anxiety attack 3 times yesterday.
Mhm.
After dealing with a series of microaggressions all month. I'm, you know, I will say I'm one of those people that is exceptionally frustrated to know that in the middle of Black History Month, we started off day one, exceptionally hostile. And being in the, I guess it borderlines entertainment and the sports world, and watching how companies were had this complete opposite effect in 2020. It only took for people to die, for them to give a damn for about 2 years. And to turn around to 2024, um, I've seen so many people in the creative, um, in the creative fields burn out. I've heard about so many people who've openly talked about suicidal ideation, um, talking about the stress from their jobs. People are being laid off. Sometimes the healing doesn't happen until the breakdown. Do I suggest it? Absolutely not. Um, sometimes people feel like they'll escape it once, if they're working on their own. I will say, as an entrepreneur, it doesn't.
Mhm.
It's
No.
here because
Yeah.
regardless, you're still interacting with the general public. There are things that I read about myself on a daily basis that I just wouldn't wish on my worst enemy. Um,
Mhm.
and people will because we've been so conditioned to say get over it, that even a fellow woman will give me that advice of get over it. And it really took for me to actually get diagnosed with anxiety, severe depression, CPTSD, for me to like look around and say, okay, sis, like you got to get it together. You have no choice. We have to prioritize this the same way that you would prioritize going to a doctor, getting a checkup, doing wellness checks, as far as your body, because your mind is just as important. You cannot do all of the hard things or even the smaller things if mentally we're not together. So we can't look at it as an accessory or something we can purchase out of a store, or, oh, just take some warm baths. Like, like sometimes that's,
Go do your nails.
like, I mean, don't get me wrong, like nails is part of my mental health. I love doing it, but it's all of the reason why this is part of my mental health is because for an hour and a half to 2 hours, I have permission to put down my damn phone. As a creative, like I'm an influencer, the many hats that I wear as a motivational speaker, an influencer, as an entrepreneur, I am constantly on my phone. I have two of them. And when I hear it, I am almost triggered. It is to a place where I have to remind myself when I go to the nail salon, take off the watch,
Wow.
turn off the phone. It is my way of practicing self-care that the world can't need me this much. Like I
Mhm.
can't always be on call 24/7, 365. The only person I'm willing to do that for, honestly, is my son. And even my son always is the one who's 16 years old. And this generation, they are just so aware. And then when they'll say, like, does everything need to have, like, you have to be on call that much? So if my son can say that to me at 16 years old, why can I not say that to companies? Why can I not say that to myself? Why can I not say that to everyday people? Why can I not set boundaries with friends, loved ones, and say, hey, listen, I hear you. However, I don't have the mental capacity to take this on at this very moment. To prioritize the word no. These are
Latoya,
things
that's
that have to
hard
be part of
though.
it.
That's
It's definitely
hard.
I have
It's hard. And
I
and the reason why I say it's hard is because the the stigma is so like ingrained in us,
yeah,
right?
I'm still
Where
there.
it's like you know, you don't even know how to even go to a friend and say, yo, I had an anxiety attack without them looking like, uh, go lay down, go drink some water, right?
Drink some ginger
You'll
ale.
feel
You'll be
better the
fine.
next
Wash some
Right.
day,
soap. You'll be fine.
But I
you
think
know?
the key is surrounding yourself with people
Yeah.
who will understand you. But I think, like, to your question, it's also, I mean, how we're going to change this, it's the transparency. So Latoya, I thank you, for sharing that. And I try to be as transparent as I can, not only, I mean, obviously with my friends, but also, like I said, with my kids. I think the more that we talk about the things that we're going through, the anxieties we're feeling, the things that we have to do to like try to unload some of that weight that's on, so many of our shoulders. I think that's key. And honestly, like, Latoya, for you, it's your nails. And like, I think like so many of us during COVID or the height of COVID, it was so many things. I was working in DEI at the time, for the first time working in DEI and feeling like I had so much on my shoulders. And I had never, I'm not a therapist. I'm not anyone who is trained in HR. So to get, to kind of have all these people telling me about the things that they've gone through, right? That triggered me and start bringing up memories for me. It was too much because I'm such an empath too. So it was just, I felt like piling on in here and I didn't know how to release. And on top of it, my parents were, across the border. I couldn't see them. It was the longest I hadn't seen them. And so for me, I openly said, to my coworkers, to my family, and we were also dealing with so many other personal tragedies at the same time. And, I said it all the time. It's hard for me to continue, I had to say things like that. And then I had to do things, which seems crazy but I mean, I had to like dress up. Fashion was always my, my
Right.
reprieve. So it was nails for you. It's like fashion for me. And I had to do that. I even created like a whole new Instagram account, just to take a picture of like what I was wearing as like quarantine closet, right? To hold myself accountable, to like make myself dress up and make myself feel good. I would always joke with my colleagues, the bigger my earrings, the more I was under stress. So I tried to wear those earrings too. I was using it like, okay, it'll just, all the things, it'll go in there. But, I would openly talk about, that account being this thing to help me with my anxiety, to help me just really cope with all the things that were happening, right? And I felt like, it helped other people even, just saying like, this is why I did it. And I created a, small community of people who I felt like, would support me and lift me up when I needed it. Right. So I think
Melody,
it's like
what's your
we have
thoughts?
to, yeah, pardon? Sorry.
Oh.
No, I said, Melody, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so one of the epiphanies that I had several years ago was they're going to judge me regardless, right? People,
Mm.
they're going to judge me regardless, whether I do one
Everybody
thing or
like,
the other,
yep.
they're going to judge me regardless.
That
And
part.
if they're going to judge me, I might as well live the life that I choose to live unequivocally, right? Unabashedly, like just be who I am, and it is what it is. And most of the experience, most of the anxiety I ever had to do with race. It had to do with racism. It had to do with white supremacy. It had to do with the microaggressions and the bias and the classism, right? Like all of that. And I remember working at an organization, a nonprofit that, because everyone swears nonprofits are these goody places. And I'm like, no, they're hell. And I remember like even though I lived 10 minutes away, I was crying going to work. I was crying leaving work. I was crying at work. And I'm like, I am a New Yorker. I don't cry. Right? Like I
Right.
don't cry. You know what I mean? And but it was just so much of the stress. I'm being facetious, but like it was just so much of it that I remember my friend at the time, they're my boyfriend now, but my friend at the time was just like, what's going on with you? I was like, I hate my job. And he's like, well, you need to quit. I was like, you know what? You're right. Now, let
You're
me
right.
say that comes from a place of privilege, right? Like that I was like, you know what? I'm out. Now, granted, I didn't really have anything lined up, but I was like, I know that I am not on this planet to suffer. And I remind myself of that all the time. I know that I am not on this place, on this earth, in this life to suffer. And so anything that makes me suffer, I don't want to deal with. And I'm not going to deal with. And I'm actually in the domestic violence and DEI space. So I work with gender-based violence organizations around DEI. And I'm like, look, y'all going to either get it together or you're not, right? Like I'm not attached to that. I let go of this idea that if I go in there and try to fix situations, I'm not trying to fix anything. What I'm telling you is like, you're either going to recognize that your bias, right, is showing up and it's harming people and it's causing mental health people, with your employees, or you're not, right? And that's totally up to you. And so for me, the way I was able to reduce my mental health crises that I was having, or challenges, was realizing I'm going to live my life how I want to live it, and people are going to judge me regardless. And that is not my place. That's not mine. That's their shit. That's not my shit, right? Like that's it. And I let it go.
Yep. So I want to move to another one that kind of segue to what you said, and that is, you know, some people get uncomfortable when you bring up segregation and slavery, unequal treatment of women and health. At this point, you get a lot of people that say, "Oh my God, that was so long ago. That was then. We're living in a new era." It is not that way. We love all people. Racism, it's probably, not there as much as it was. It's not in our faces anymore. We could choose, you know, uh, 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 to not put ourselves in situations where we do feel uncomfortable. Do you ladies believe that now we have this place where racism, as silent as it is, we don't really need to pay attention to it anymore?
Hell
Or
no.
is it still something that's prevalent that is going on, but
The
we
interesting
still wanna just don't laugh at me, y'all. I'm trying to say this in a nice way.
the interesting thing is, right, what I always say when people say stuff like that, like, and when I say people, we're talking about white people. When white people say stuff like that, right, let's name the thing. When white people say stuff like that, I like to remind them that this is actually harming them too, right? Racism is hurting them as well. White supremacy is hurting them as well. They just don't want to realize. Right. And so when I bring up to them, like, no, here is how it's also harming you, and why, if you actually let it go, right? If you actually let it go and realize that you can embrace liberation for everyone, you'll be much more happier in your life, right? Like you'll be much more happier. The other part about that is I actually don't even care what they gotta say, right? Like I don't care, because those who want to change their way of thinking will be open to change and transformation. Those who don't will find every single reason to keep keep the ideas, the ideas of what they have about what other people are experiencing. So I'm not going to fight against you. That's just going to stress me out. I am not going to, okay, that's what you believe. You think that racism doesn't exist, or you think that we don't have to deal with it as much, which is weird, right? Like, I don't want to deal with it at all, right? But if you feel like we don't, fine. I'm not here to change your mind, right? And guess what? You're not going to change my mind about what I'm experiencing either.
Andrea, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's, I don't know. I mean, it's obviously it's still all around us. And I mean, to me, it's getting worse, it's like, since, 2020, and, all of the, company statements and all sorts of stuff, and all this standing by Black lives, we're obviously seeing, with the reduction of, DEI officers, and the reduction of, funding, of different programs and defunding of different programs. We're seeing it all around. So, I mean, this is the time where we need to support each other more than ever, supporting our businesses, supporting in general, right? Supporting each other to get through this time. But, it's still all around us, and it's heartbreaking to see, that it's still happening. I follow Bernice King on Instagram, and she does a wonderful job of reminding people, of posting pictures of her father in color to say that this was not too long ago. This was not too long ago that this was happening. We can't ignore it. We can't ignore it, and we have to, we have to speak up. And even if you don't feel comfortable speaking up, you need to speak up in other ways in terms of your support and what we're doing to support our communities and our businesses, especially when, like you had in one of the promos, as entrepreneurs and Black businesses are getting less than 1% of, VC. And look at what's happening with the Fairless Fund. It's an attack specifically on Black female founders, and their access to capital, and an organization that is trying to help us,
Latoya,
so
what do you think?
I had to laugh because a long time ago means that Rodney King was not in my era.
right.
A long time ago means that my parents were not from the generation where they remember when segregation was happening in schools. A long time ago means that these people are still here, and they have fond memories of a long time ago. So anytime that I hear that, I'm just like absolutely cut the shit. I have very little patience and little tolerance, especially after 2020, when companies miraculously found money out of nowhere to put us in campaigns, when they used our stories, like it was just like, please teach me your ways. Then the entitlement came in of we have to be educators to other people, to tell people how to deal with and process our trauma. I had no idea that this was happening around me, but I had no choice but to learn about your history when I was in school. So when I hear things like a long time ago, I'm like, define a long time ago.
Right.
Define, please define. What do you mean by a long time ago? You mean like last week? You mean when they were finding you mean the grave sites in the back of of a police station? When is a long time ago? You mean the new policies that's turning around, the fact that a lot of us are wondering if we're going to have rights to even vote? When is a long time ago? It's just, when I hear it, I don't have a kind way of going about it. I don't have the tight-lipped smile, the one that people look constipated and it's like, like the side tilt that happens with the tight smile. Like I don't have a kind word to it. And I used to get a little frustrated. I'm not gonna lie. I was one of those people that used to get frustrated when people would point them to Google. They go to Google and do a Google search, because realistically, you know how algorithms work. One search person's Google search is not going to look the same as another person's Google
Exactly.
search. However, if you really want to learn, you will find a way. And
Right.
that was something where I had to undo and unprocess a couple of things of I don't have to coddle white people.
Right.
I don't have to hold their hand as they're learning certain things. If they really give a damn about my life, they're going to do the work, just like I had no choice but to do the work to figure out how to move around corporate America around them. I had to figure out how to do the work when it came down to my resume before I got into this field. The reason why my profile name is I am El Shantae is because for a long time, people would not hire me for using my first and middle name. So I literally had to take on putting on L.S. Snell. So when they saw the last name, the name that I got married into, and they saw it and they said, oh, that's German. And then I come there and it's like, surprise. And I'm like, but you love the resume.
Yeah.
You love the way that I articulated myself and email. You love the way that I said certain things, but now that I'm here, my hair is a problem. My nails are a problem. I'm in a fitness industry. And there are times where I've literally seen myself in promotional videos and gone to the comment section, and people are just like, how does she run with her nails? What does running have to do with my nails? Like
Mm.
Flojo was amazing. I mean, I'm never
Yeah.
gonna be her.
Yes.
I'm never going to beat her.
Yeah.
I don't have her speed. But I'm just like the idea that you can nitpick at everything that is me, but then borrow or steal everything that is me. So you can put it into your campaigns, into your advertisements, into your media, and then tell me in my face that you're going to hoodwink me to my face and tell me that racism doesn't exist. I'd be damned.
Oh, God. Okay, y'all. So we're going to move to the workplace because I think that's the next big thing that I see. So I did a little research and I'm just going to read it. The writers of Harvard Business Review article that is called The Cost of Code Switching states that the behavior is necessary for advancement, but it takes a great psychological toll on Black women. How do we get to this point? How did we get here where corporate America knows that it's happening? Harvard Business Review wrote a whole article on it. And they said that it's necessary for advancement, and they know that it takes a great psychological toll on Black women. So if we know it, why is it not changing?
I'm going to say something a little controversial, right? Like you asked, like, how did we get here, right? And I'm
Yeah.
gonna say because it was a group of Black people was like, in order to actually break free, right, we need to align ourselves with whiteness. And that kept being perpetuated generation after generation. That told you, no, if you wear a suit and tie, if you wear a bow tie, if you wear this, if you straighten your hair, if you do these things, then they will accept us, right? There was a group of Black people, right, and a generation not that far along that said, fit in, right? And that has continued to be perpetuated, right? And so when I said I had to realize, like, I had to stop caring, I really had to stop caring because nothing we do for those who want to be racist towards us, nothing we do, whether we talk and say, yo, what's up? First of all, I'm in the South, and immediately they're like, where are you from? Immediately, where are you from? And I'm like, I'm from New York. And I remember working at this is crazy. I remember working at an abortion clinic in New York. In Manhattan, no, Brooklyn, I'm sorry, in Brooklyn, led by this white woman. And she was like, yeah, you can't be on the phone because your voice it's too curt, it's too this. I'm like, I sound like every goddamn New Yorker, but all right. And but and that's what I'm thinking in my head, but I'm young, so I'm like, okay, so how do I need to talk, right? Like, what? And it just never really worked. Like, it just did not work. Like, no matter what inflections I put up, or if I didn't drop my T's and and all of that, like, it just didn't work. And so I realized, like, I want to be in a space that I can show up authentically as myself. And the reason why I know me deciding to no longer code switch works is because I literally had someone who interned with me just a few weeks ago say to me, I remember working with you and realizing that I never met a Black woman who was like, I'm just going to show up as I am. And I'm going to say what I got to say. And I worked at that organization 7 years ago, and that stood out to her. She's years younger than me, and that stood out to her, that I just showed up how I am, and I'm not code switching, because again, if they want to not like you, they're going to find a reason to not like you. So me trying to fit in is not going to work, right? Like, and again, I've been in the South for 12 years, and they can distinctively know that I'm not from there, because it is what it is. And so code switching is something that I think that there's ways to do it that you can still honor yourself, right? Like, I may do it if I was looking for a job. I'm like, let me switch it up just a little bit so I can get in that job, right? if I really, really wanted to. But ultimately, I'm not going to do it. It's so exhausting. It's exhausting.
What do you think, Andrea?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was going to say. It's exhausting. And when you realize, that for most of us, we've been code switching our whole lives, you know? And I distinctly, I remember hearing a panel about code switching. I was in the audience and hearing some of these women talk. And then I'm thinking, and I'm like, you know, I've been code switching probably since kindergarten. You know, literally, I remember walking into kindergarten and being the only Black child. And sometimes it's not even about your tone or your voice, but sometimes it's also about what can I talk about to make people comfortable with me. And I think that's why a lot of Black women do well in the corporate world, because we know how to, you know, make people comfortable with us. What do you like? Where are you from? What do you know? It's something that becomes natural. So sometimes the code switching can, you know, benefit us because we know how to operate in different situations, but it is exhausting. And for me, the older I got, you know, I thought when I turned 40 that automatically I'd be able to say what I want to say and be amazing and be my true authentic self. But that didn't happen at 40. It didn't happen at 41. You know, it kept going. I mean, I worked at the same organization for over 22 years. And it wasn't until the 18th or 19th year that I think that I wore braids to work. Wow. You know, and it's not that anyone tells you that you can't, right? But it's just ingrained in you. And so it was so liberating, and it seemed simple. And I was 40 something years old. But also what I realized too, it was also the first time I ever reported to a Black woman. And so that actually made me feel safe because she had natural hair, you know, as crazy as it is at 40 something years old. But even little steps like that, like wearing my natural hair, stopping getting relaxers, and wearing my big earrings and my bright glasses, because I think part of the thing too is that we know sometimes coming into corporate spaces, you don't want the first 15 minutes to be about your hair or about your glasses, right? So that's why I feel like also I played it safe, because I didn't want any more attention to me than necessary, right? But now
That sounds so weird to me though, guys, because you know, I don't have that experience. I never had that experience where I had to be in environments where I had to switch, but to be more in a situation where you have to, you know, get somebody comfortable with you, like what does that mean?
I mean, it's something, again, it may not be said, right? It's not said out loud. It's just sometimes when, you know, spaces are built not necessarily for us, right? So we're trying to fit in. It's just sometimes it's implied, right? And sometimes it's just, you know, in the atmosphere. So sometimes it's those, you know, unwritten rules, and it's tough. But like you were saying, Melody, you know, doing those things, the more I became my authentic self, I had younger people, you know, come up to me and telling me how much they appreciated me wearing something or appreciated me saying something, right? And that's what's important, and how we sort of, you know, start to break those cycles. So
it's interesting because really quickly, it was a Black woman who told me that I needed to like tone it down.
I'm
right?
glad you
Like,
said that.
happens, yes.
Like I was like,
that.
I'm not gonna lie to you, like the several times that I've had situations where it was like I was told to kind of like tone it down and not quite be myself and do something different with my hair or whatever. It was from Black women, right? Because anybody can uphold. This is what people need to realize. Anybody can uphold white supremacy, right? Anybody can uphold those beliefs. And so my experience has been, sadly, it's mainly been Black women who told me to like tone it down, shut it down, you know, dress this way, like, unfortunately.
Yeah, but the crazy part is, I mean, I when I think back to my experience, I didn't know what the hell code switching was. I'm the opposite. I didn't know what the hell code switching was. And I mean, I as a Brooklyn, New York girl, East New York, Crown Heights, Bed-Stuy, like, you know, Bushwick, these are the areas that I know. So I know that, you know, as a fellow New Yorker, you know these areas. And because I've grown up with Black and brown people around me, it was a serious culture shock once I actually started going into like the Wall Street areas or applying for jobs. And I'm just like, wait, hold up. they didn't teach me this part, when I was in school, that, I have to, instead of sounding like this, like, hey, how you doing? It's like, hey, how you doing? I have to put on the corporate America voice, the take it an octave up. When I was applying for my Starbucks job, they was like, yo, can we get you to not say it like that when you say a tall, skim caramel macchiato? I used to make fun of it, and I realized how much it used to piss me off that they wanted me to do this nasally sound with my nose. Instead of saying a tall skim caramel macchiato, I had to, can I get a tall skim caramel macchiato? And I felt like I was mocking people, and I was like, wait, hold up, is that what they think whiteness sounds like? And if that's the case, then what does my blackness sound like? And how many people have been doing this their entire lives? So I thought I had left that when I left out of Starbucks. And I realized the more that I was going into not-for-profit, when I was going into corporate America, people loved the telephone voice. I had the safe telephone voice to a place where until they heard that my name was Latoya, they just assumed that I was white. And I still remember, and I apologize to my family members who might be watching this live, but I know that sometimes when I use that corporate America voice, there are times when my family members can't recognize who I am and who's on the phone and are you playing around and "Well, what's that white girl voice you're using?" Like that's that like I'm being just blunt. This is the way that I've managed to nail my jobs. When I started getting into the fitness space, I thought the last thing I would have to worry about was dealing with code switching. But I've had people touch my hair. I'm going to be kind enough to not mention their names, but I've had people touch my hair. Some of your favorites have said racist things in my face, and they told me today I made them feel safe to make these statements. And then it was just the audacious nature of it to feel that comfortable and that emboldened to ask me certain questions, or the nuance that exists in the room to change the music because you assume that I like rap music, or I have to prove that, or hearing statements like, I'm probably a little bit blacker than you. To hear these type of statements being made to me, and because I'm in the public eye, I'm expected to smile, grin, and bear it, because you don't want to offend anybody in the room. Remember, we allowed you in here. You didn't earn your way in here. And then I have to check them and say, no, no, no. You found me on the internet saying way more harsh things on the internet. And now that you think that I'm here, I'm supposed to change up my language. I think the hell not. So my
Right.
whole idea is, if you like what you see, please expect to have the same product in your face. And if you do not like what you see, then please don't shop here. Don't. I'm not begging.
All right. So, like, for the sake of time, I want to move to the relationship part because we only got a few minutes. So, how strong do you think the Black family dynamic is? And what are some of the things we can do as women to go ahead and strengthen that? Anybody can take that question.
Man, I'm loving my Black family. My husband is behind me. I've been with him for we just celebrated, oh gosh, she's gonna kill me. 17 years. We
Ah,
just celebrated
congratulations.
17 years of marriage. I'm 38.
Congratulations.
39. Thank you. When I hear, don't get me wrong, I know the stereotypes that's put out there, that there are no good Black men out there. I'm married to one. He's dynamic. He treats me amazing. We look at each other and we side eye each other. We have our moments just like anybody else. We have a beautiful 16-year-old son who is brilliant and empathetic, and he's kind, and he will check his mama in a heartbeat when sometimes I'm a little bit too ratchet and hood. He is of a different generation, and he reminds me that I can be soft. If it's anybody that's been the best educator to me, is my son, who's taught me that, Mom, you don't have to hide your tears. Like, who told you that you have to do that? My son is my check. He is my check, Mike 1212.
Mm.
And so, for when I hear people say that, that Black marriages don't exist, or, there's no hope, I'm like, I've been reminded of my hope for 17 years, 17 years married and 23 years together. I'm like, don't you dare tell me that's not possible.
No, that's right.
I grew up in a dysfunctional family. Like, I grew up in an atmosphere, but my parents were together until my dad passed away. And, there are things where I had a great example of what a Black family could be, a dynamic Black family could be. But I also saw what happens when you don't deal with mental health. With my father, he was my best and worst role model. I watched a man essentially destroy himself, and in turn, it kind of trickled down into our family when it came down to financial matters, when it came down to safety. But when he was great, he was great. So I think like any other, background, any other nationality, any other racial realm, everybody has their issues. But I'm just so tired of the stereotype being perpetuated that there are no good Black families out there. We are great. We are amazing and we're dynamic.
Amen.
Andrea, what do you think?
I agree. I agree. I'm married to a Black man and love him, and and even honestly, simple things like posting things that we do as a family, like any other family. Sometimes I get comments on that. Honestly, I get comments sometimes from Black people who are like, "Thank you for posting. Just you going to the science fair? Are you doing this?" I mean, and it shouldn't necessarily be like that, but we're trying to break stereotypes all the time, it seems. But it's hard because, again, it's like sometimes these things that are ingrained in us of we have to prove people wrong, and even if you're not married, it doesn't mean that you failed either. So that's what I want us to remind each other and ourselves. And I don't always feel like it's on the Black woman to make sure that the Black family is standing strong. It's on both of us, because that's part of the, even what we're talking about. Sometimes so much is put on us. And I feel like oftentimes when we talk about Black families, it's centered on the Black woman. Of course we are the matriarchs, but still, I think the more that we talk about it being an equal as equal as it can be situation, I think the better. But I think us just existing, is sometimes enough, honestly, to exist as other couples and other families are able to exist in this world. But I
How
love
about you,
my
Melody?
Yeah, so first of all, I love that you all are both married. I'm not married, but I'm in a very loving relationship with a Black man, and especially having, experienced intimate partner violence, like I had to, what I like to say, relearn, unlearn, and learn, right? New ways of healthy relationships and what that looks like, especially in relation to being in a Black relationship, like being with a Black man, right? And so to your point, like it is both of us um that the responsibility is on for not just our family but our community too, right? That's really important to us as well. For me, like that Black love really had to start with loving myself as a Black woman.
Exactly.
Right? Like it had really had to do with loving myself as a Black woman. I have a 15-year-old son, and even though me and his dad are not together, I'm still like, Black men are amazing, right? Like Black men are amazing. Black love is beautiful, right? And we've heard it. Black love is revolutionary because they don't want us together. They want us to destroy. And so I'd be so tired of the social media arguments about Black men and Black women. Like it drives me insane because I'm like, please stop. Just please stop. Like we do not need to be bickering. And I want to say, like, Black love isn't also heterosexual either, right? Like it's
Right.
like there's so many other types of Black love, right? And so any part of that is beautiful. And as long as we are respectful of each other and we care for each other and we know that we can show up for each other in ways that no one else can because they don't know what we're experiencing, right? Do your thing. But for me, right, it is absolutely Black first. And that's it. I was Black before I was a damn girl, right? Before I was a woman, I was Black first. And so that's always going to come first. And so I just encourage everyone to work on that Black love with themselves first before they decide that they want to actually have Black love with someone else, and teach that to our kids as well.
I agree. So, ladies, we coming up on an hour, and I know we could do this all day long, but I wanted to say thank you so much for doing this town hall, and I want each of you just to remind the people of what you do, how they can follow you, how they can actually, get whatever it is that you have going on. And again, we probably come back to you guys either individually or collectively again, because we want to be respectful of everybody's time. But we could go on and on for hours
Right.
with everything. But we'll start with you first, Latoya.
Sure. So I am available on social media, or as well as my website. So please do not whisper this. Runningfatchef.com, runningfatchef.com, runningfatchef.com. If you feel some type of way about the word fat, instead of associated with body weight, I say think about the seasoning in your plate. If you don't have fat, you don't have flavor, honey. So
Mhm.
find me on runningfatchef.com as well as Running Fat Chef on Instagram and on here on Facebook. My account is Running Fat Chef. You can also find me on my primary Instagram account. It's I am L Shantae. IAMLSHAUNTAY. I am El Shantae. I have a great community that's over there. You can find me, I am El Shantae on TikTok as well as Threads. I'm always talking shit for the culture.
All right, Andrea, have at it.
Sure. So you can find me on Instagram. I'll just give you two, and you can find the other links in there. At Drea Day, DREADAY, and at June Dragonfly Box, which is my curated gifting company. And so I curate gifts and source all women-owned products, as well as underrepresented folks as well, but primarily women-founded companies. And so I just started that last year. So excited about that. But from the Drea Day account, you can see my style closet link and my consulting business link as well. So, and again, thank you, Dr. Glow, for having us. This was a great, great conversation. And I loved having it with all three of you.
Thank you. All right, Melody, kick it to us, please. Let us
Yep.
know what you have.
Yeah, so definitely you can find me I'm mainly on Instagram, LinkedIn, a little bit of Facebook, but Instagram is the best part. I am Melody Co. That's IAMMELODYCO. You can find anything else there, and my website is courageousshift.com. And yeah, LinkedIn Melody Gross, I guess. Yeah, so all of that good stuff. And I definitely want to connect with you about the gifting. So
Right.
thank you.
All right.
So, ladies, there you have it. Sisters, how y'all feel? Thank you so much for doing this, ladies, again. We're going to have to do this again where we got more time and we can really delve into everything. But I definitely enjoyed it. Ladies, get out there and watch the replay. I don't even know what to say. I just feel so good right now because I just know that if we were to delve in the way that we needed to, I mean, with all of us here, we could definitely change lives, with all of our experiences and everything. So I want to thank you so much. Let's do this again, and I will see y'all soon, okay?
Peace.
Thank you.
All right, you guys have a good night.
Thanks. You too. Bye.